I'm attempting to complete every single GameCube game, and I'm using a random number generator to pick the next game. Last episode, we went back to the arcade days and played Namco Museum 50th Anniversary. And in this episode, we're going shooting our way through Chaos Field. Chaos Field was released on December 20th, 2005, and was developed and published by Milestone Inc. This game was unfairly challenging, and I struggled with this one. Before we get started, make sure to like this video because it helps out the channel. Subscribe if you're new so you don't miss any of the future games. And without further ado, this is my experience with Chaos Field. In Chaos Field, we're going to go through the original mode to consider this one complete. We could have done arcade mode to consider this one complete as well. The only difference is that there are small enemies in the original mode, and there isn't any in the arcade mode. I figured the original mode would be more challenging, so I decided to go with that one. Chaos Field is a vertically scrolling shoot-'em-up game with consecutive boss fights. These type of games are usually called shmups, and are normally games that I enjoy, so I was excited to get into this one. The game is made up of 5 stages, and each stage has a total of 3 bosses in them to defeat, and then we can move on to the next stage. We can play as 3 different characters, all with their own unique ships and primary weapons. The game is very simple, and there honestly isn't that much to this one, so this video might be on the shorter side compared to my other ones. I want to point out that in this game you have 1 life per credit, and the default credits are 3. This game was so difficult, I decided to add more credits so I could finish it, but I still tried my best to finish it with the least amount of deaths as I could. Chaos Field feels a bit generic, and a lot of the boss fights feel almost impossible to complete. During the game, we can switch between parallel worlds to change the gameplay up slightly. In the normal mode, our weapons don't do as much damage, but there are less bullets that we have to deal with from the bosses. But if we switch into Chaos mode, then our weapons do more damage, our shield is larger, and our lock-on missiles can destroy the enemy bullets. However, there are a lot more enemy bullets, and it makes it way more challenging to stay alive. This was originally a Japanese arcade game that was later ported to the consoles, but it only ever came to the United States on the GameCube, which is a fun fact. Alright, I think that covers the game, so let's move into the different characters we can use during it. First up, we're going to talk about Hal. This is who I use to finish the game and is considered the balanced character in the game. Hal can shoot bullets forward and also at a slight angle on both sides of the ship, making hitting bosses all the time way easier than with the other characters. He also has the special ability to throw a shield in front of him to block bullets, and then we can hide behind this shield so that we don't take damage. Hal has lock-on rockets that let you hit a bunch of targets at once, which is very helpful. Hal also has a sword to block bullets, but is unable to block the purple/pink bullets from bosses, which can become a problem depending on which boss you're fighting. The nice thing about this game is that if you lose a life, you can switch to another character, so sometimes that can help you out if a boss uses a lot of a specific bullet type that we can't block. At the top left of the screen, it shows us our health. Each section of the circle is how many hits we can take before we die, and the bar below the health meter is how many lock-on missiles and shields that we can use. To refill these meters, we have to collect these red diamonds that appear once we do damage to an enemy or a boss. We want to make sure that we can collect as many as possible so that we can use our shield as often as we need to. Let's move on to the next character, Ifumi. She is much quicker when flying around the screen. However, she takes way less hits before she dies, and is considered the lightweight class, but I feel like she does more damage than Hal. Instead of shooting missiles, she uses 6 red lasers to attack the enemies. These lasers will lock onto the boss, which helps when doing damage. Her shield is different as well. 2 mini ships will fly around her in a circle and block bullets from the bosses. This can be helpful too, but this one was a bit challenging to get used to. Her special attack for missiles is just an area that you choose, and that area will get hit with missiles from her attack. She also has swords like all the other characters in the game that will allow for her to block the bullets. Let's move on to the last character we can use in the game, Jen. Jen is the heavyweight class and moves around a lot slower than the other 2 characters. Jen shoots with a yellow shockwave attack instead of missiles or lasers. He still has a sword that can block bullets, and his shields shoot out in different directions, so they're kind of all over the screen. They're a lot smaller than House Shield, and it can be kinda weird to get used to. Jen was my least favorite character to use, and I think this has to do with the fact that I struggled to play the game using him. When shooting his lock-on missiles, it's just 2 straight lines that shoot at an angle. That covers the characters, so let's take a look at the bosses in the game. There are a bunch of bosses in this game, so I'm just going to cover the last boss in each stage. In these boss fights, they will shoot a bunch of bullets at us at literally all times. They usually don't even take breaks, so we can't even stay in one place to not get hit by something, or we'll just lose quickly. Each boss has a health bar at the top of the screen, so we know that they're on low health. So that's a nice feature instead of trying to guess how long it's going to take to defeat them. The last thing to note is that each boss fight is timed. If we run out of time, the boss just leaves and we can continue with the game. So if you can't defeat an enemy, then just trying to survive is another option for the fight. The final boss for stage 1 is a giant ship that sort of looks a bit like a tank that we would drive on the ground with. This boss uses a string of attacks, but primarily likes to shoot out rings of orange circles. We can block these with our shields with all of the characters, making this fight not that hard. There are areas on the boss that we can destroy, causing them to not shoot that type of ammo anymore. Figuring out where the bullets that we can block come from can make the fight so much easier. I never really struggled with this boss fight during my attempts, but I can't say that I'm surprised since this is stage 1 of the game. The final boss in stage 2 looks like a mech more than a ship. At least that was the vibe I got from this one. He shoots a bunch of green and purple bullets. Using Hal during this run, I couldn't block any of these ones, and maybe I would have been better off to switch characters that could handle it instead. But I was able to get through this one without dying that much. This boss shoots these green bullets from the squares on its armor. If we take out those squares, it makes avoiding the bullets a lot easier. So that was my focus during this fight. I died a couple times in this fight, but was able to get through it. This stage felt like the longest stage in the game, but it could have been that I couldn't avoid the purple bullets and I would have to fly around, causing me to stop shooting. I'm not completely sure though. The boss in stage 3 is when this game begins to feel impossible. This boss is a roundish satellite looking ship and shoots bullets in a rotating fashion. It's mainly purple, so yet again I couldn't block these, and it ended up forcing me into evading them instead. I found that moving into chaos mode made this fight easier for some reason, and once you get its health down low enough, it turns sideways and continues to shoot in the same pattern. The final boss in stage 4 was the easiest boss for me. Hal in chaos mode does a bunch of damage and it primarily uses blue bullets to attack us. We can block these with our shield, allowing for us to do massive damage quickly. It will throw in some purple ones occasionally, but nothing that we can't handle if paying attention. I died once in this fight, but I shouldn't have. If I would have just stayed in chaos mode, I think I would have won without dying. This boss is just a blue spaceship, nothing crazy about this one. It's a pretty basic design overall. Let's move on to the final boss of the game. This boss fight is actually a 2-phase boss fight. In this first phase, it's a spear. It reminds me of the Death Star from Star Wars a little bit. This boss fight as a whole would be impossible to complete with 1 life. I don't think anyone could do it. If you can, let me know down in the comments. I want to see it. It shoots out a massive amount of green and purple bullets, and the first wave we can block the green and avoid the purple. But the pattern it uses in its second attack, I have no idea how you would avoid the purple. They come out in such a strange pattern, and moving doesn't seem to really help us from taking hits. This boss is also bulky and takes a bunch of shots to even get its health down at all. I hope you're ready if you're playing this one, because it's going to take a while. Now that we finished that part of the fight, let's move on to the second phase of the boss fight. In the second phase, it's a smaller spear that has like angel wings. These wings will also shoot at us. It's an interesting idea, but since you can't really look at it while playing, it almost seems pointless. In this phase, it shoots out green and purple bullets in all directions at the same time. Explain to me how someone is supposed to avoid this. Where can I move to that I wouldn't get hit by the purple bullets? It's not happening. In the next pattern of bullets, it shoots out a small amount of purple and then does a spinning attack with the green, We can avoid the green bullets with little issue, so this pattern is when I was able to get my hits in on the boss. Then it goes back to the whole screen being covered, and I died a bunch of times. This is the type of boss fight that feels like it would cause the player to use all their money if they were playing at the arcade. After a long battle with this boss, I was finally able to finish the fight and complete the game. I finished this game only dying 14 times, which I think is pretty good considering how difficult the game is. I would love to see some runs with less deaths. But I have a challenge to complete, so let me know down in the comments if you have a better run. Chaos Field is done, and we can move on to the next game as we watch the credits. Would I recommend this game? I don't think I would recommend this one. There is zero story to this game, and it's challenging, but sometimes it just feels unfair. So I would just recommend playing a different shmup instead of this one. But let me know what you think about it in the comments below. If you want to know what's next, stick around, but if not, thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe, like, and share this video, and we'll see you in the next one.
So we have our GameCube game list up. We have our random number generator set to 518. And on the count of 3, we're going to find out what we're playing next. So 3, 2, 1. 84, which is towards the top. 84, Cubic Robots for Everyone Showdown.